What's up, everybody? Jacob here with Mystery Arts Inc., taking you faster, further in mentalism with in-depth reviews, resources, and random rants. As always, I'm here, your host, Jacob Smith. Today we're going to start a whole new branch of the Mystery Arts framework. We're going to be talking about key subjects, as well as my thoughts on them from my experience of seeing so many different performers, hearing so many different thoughts, reviewing so many different products over the years. Now, some of you might be wondering, where did my expertise come from? I do perform. I don't perform professionally. I prefer to be the guy behind the camera anymore. That's just a simple life decision. That being said, I do perform socially a lot. And I do professional gigs whenever I can have the time. And I have seen more magic lectures than almost anybody else alive. So today, let's go ahead and get into our project. We're going to talk about progressive anagrams. Start off, let's go ahead and kind of identify what a progressive anagram is. There are different forms of anagram. There are some that base off of, you name a letter when you get down to the last one, there it is, things such as that. But the basic progressive anagram I'll be talking about today is what we see in examples such as Ray Grismer's What's My Sign, Peter Turner's take on that, Gary Kurtz's anagram from his 3-billet test as he wrote under Jas Jakoots, Atlas Brookings and what he does with it, Doug DeMont, Colin MacLeod. There's a lot of people that use anagrams. They're not a terrible method. They're actually a very, very good method's the thing. The truth is, though, I think that there's this very simple way to fix a lot of the problems that we have with them. Let's address some of the problems first off. Whenever I see somebody say, is an A in this? Is an R? I know instantly they're doing an anagram. It's one of those things. There are some unpublished things I can't reveal right now of people that have solutions to this. Big one's going to be Warren Thackeray. He has an excellent solution to this said problem. I think the next problem, outside of obviousness, is the fluidity in the character presenting said thing. A lot of people, I think, go in and they're doing this socially, or maybe they do it professionally, and they don't know if they're a psychic, they don't know if they're a psychological guy, they don't know if they're just a speaker that does this for special effects in their show, and I think because of that, it telegraphs kind of the problem. But I think also the problem with it could be a bit too much fluidity. You've seemed like you've done this too many times before and said this too many times before. You don't want to be certain 100% of the time. Good example of this, I think, goes to Fanon Balik and the way he approaches this, and Peter Turner as well, and Fraser and Ross too, doing their context shifts. I think that too much fluidity is one of the big killers. It's also one of the big other side of things that makes it seem a bit obvious if you have too little. It's a nice balance of the two, making it feel like it's the first time you've done this procedure maybe, or not the first time you've done this procedure, but the first time you've had this unique spouting out of words in this procedure, but you've done the procedure before, but also at the same time making it obvious that you're really concretely getting in and honing in on something. I think the final problem a lot of people have, and this goes kind of with the obviousness and the fluidity, is that there's not enough layered methods in anagrams typically to make them, in my opinion, the optimum bit of deceptive. So now that we've covered some of the problems, the cons with progressive anagrams, let's go into the pros as well as do some resources here to tell you how you can improve yours. First thing, obviously, to get rid of the obviousness, no pun intended, of the said method, you want to make sure that you're doing something to layer the methods. For example, a good example of this, I feel, comes from At the Table with Peter Turner. At the Table, in the lecture, he did a triangle of telepathy. What this was him revealing a apparently freely thought of thing, and then a pin code at the same time. And the stacking method, which is also reminiscent of Mark Shandow, author of Harp a Crown, is there as well. Colin MacLeod does something very similar as well in his Epiphanies, which I won't go into because that's a very limited book. I think that one of the big things we can do is hiding the fact that we just say, think of your star sign, think of your superhero, think of your whatever. We can disguise that. I think instantly anagrams get 100 times better. That being said, I have seen Atlas Brookings do this straight. his procedure, and this kind of segues into our next point about improving our fluidity and our character. When Atlas does a progressive anagram, he has someone put their arm out like that, which he takes, he has them recite the alphabet out loud or in their head, and then he starts doing his anagrams. And he's so good at it, and it's so believable, that he actually fooled me. I didn't believe he was doing an anagram. It looked that good. And I think that's a very important lesson to learn. One, we need to empty our cup and understand we don't know everything on a subject. Two, I think that we need outside influences and other ideas to come in to really refine what we're doing. Resources here, I think you can find fluidity. For sure, you get The Prodigal by Atlas Brookings. It's one of the first products where my name appeared in the ad copy as a reviewer. And it was my first, one of my first reviews I actually did where someone sent me a book and then I reviewed it, which I thought was amazing. Thank you for the opportunity, Atlas. You've brought me to where I am now. So if you don't like this, this is your fault. Other resources for sure is going to be the Star Sign Project, Peter Turner. He has a couple different anagram approaches in there. It's actually, they're all three anagrams their own way, but they're approached differently. One's visual, one is the traditional, and the other one is a completely left field method that's really different. That comes kind of, I've also seen Eric Alexander with Zodiac Killer doing a similar thing as well, and I helped him refine and do that back in the day when he was releasing stuff still. Other people I've heard that are really great, I've seen some of the works of Doug DeMont. I'm not a huge fan of like the sinogram method. I've also seen the works of Alain to an extent. I think he does it really well in the context of a book test, but as a star sign, it's just not my thing. I love Alain though, and I think that he's phenomenal. He's a great performer. He's very believable. He can execute that method, do it, and make it look great. I think what you need to understand from me saying that is you must find what works for you. What works for you, or what works for Alain might not work the same for you. No pun intended. No rhyme intended. But when you figure out that magical soft point of essentially what really looks believable to my audience, where they're no longer saying, well, what are you doing? Just fishing for letters? You get something really remarkable. I have my own answer to this in layering methodology to hide this limited selection field in my upcoming project, the iPhone project. It's my version of fourth dimensional telepathy, a 4-person revelation sequence, or 2 or 3. You can do whatever you want to, really. I prefer 4, but it's a way of revealing information, and they don't know they're thinking the information I think is really different. I've never seen anyone else really do before, utilizing an iPhone. That being said, let's talk some resources here. I highly recommend, as I've said, The Prodigal, Peter Turner's Star Sign Project, Alain New's work on the subject in both book tests, as well as his sinogram, as well, I don't think it's sinograms, his book, if you can still find it, is really great. Doug DeMont and his sign language, that's what I think I'm talking about. If you can get a hold of the Colin McLeod material, there's some phenomenal stuff in that. It's not stuff I agree with per se, and I wouldn't really do his method, but it might work for you, and it might gel with you really well. Big thing too, do some character building. Figure out what approach you're going to take. Are you psychic? Are you a psychological? As I said before, figure out who you are. Are you a speaker doing things that's just special effects to what you do and showcasing what you do and making your stuff more interesting? Are you a social performer? Just figure out what it is. That's one of the big secrets to making this work. So there we have it, folks. There's some thoughts on the subject matter, which we still haven't fully figured out, of progressive anagrams. The beautiful thing is, I know there's a lot more work coming on this. You know, people that really revolutionized this, Matt Mello and his approach with an origin, brilliant, turning it into kind of like a psychological association game. Peter Turner doing his billetless name guess as an interesting version of an anagram and his techniques that lie inside that. Michael Murray with additions of things like cups. And of course, I almost forgot to mention How Dare Me, Isolation, his newest release. There's a lot out there we can find, there's a lot out there we can learn, and I'm going to go ahead and attach links to a bunch of books and resources here in the description. But finally, what is your opinion? What do you think about this? Talk to me. Put it in the comments. Let people hear your voice, because the truth is, the most unhelpful voice out there is the one that is not heard. Thank you again for tuning into Mystery Arts Inc. Go ahead down there and just subscribe. It shows the love. Like if that's your prerogative. Share if there is something worth sharing here and it impacted you in some way. Thank you for your time. I'll see you next week on our new edition. We'll be talking all about me, actually, and my story and where I came from. Thank you again, and I'm tuning out.